In case it's not obvious, I have truly had it up to here with Biglaw. And I recognize that every firm is not the same. Some firms are more toxic than others. Some departments are more toxic than others. Some offices are more toxic than others. And maybe there's a firm out there that just happens to not be this way. But at this point, I have heard so many stories and I have seen the same pattern play out over and over and over again, even in firms that have better reputations. So my viewpoint at this point is I'll believe it when I see it. One of the most damaging things that big law firms do is perpetuate myths about themselves that gaslight the lawyers who work there. So if you're a lawyer in the system, you're experiencing one thing, but the firm is saying something else, and it's incredibly confusing. Today, we're going to talk about one of the most common lies that big law firms tell. I'm Sarah Cottrell. I practiced law for 10 years, and now I help unhappy lawyers ditch their soul-sucking jobs. Here's the lie. We have a no assholes policy. Alternative versions of this lie. We have a no screamers policy, or we have a no big egos policy. So first of all, let's be straight. Every firm that I have ever heard of that said that they had a no assholes policy absolutely had assholes and screamers in the partner ranks. I'm not sure what the collective delusion is that allows people to make this statement when in many cases they actually know that it's not true. Is it just that most of them aren't assholes and screamers? Is it just that they wish it was true that there were no assholes? Do people know that they're lying when they say this? Newsflash. Most of us aren't assholes and screamers is light years away from we have a no assholes policy. Can we just talk about what a low freaking bar, not an asshole is? How absurd is it that it's supposed to be a badge of honor that firms don't have an overt we welcome assholes policy? And can we also talk about how some of the most malevolent and toxic people in these systems, the malignant narcissists and the narcissistic sociopaths, don't even think they're assholes because they think that they're just responding appropriately to the shortcomings of the people around them. So you could literally have an asshole telling you, we have a no assholes policy, without realizing that they themselves are in fact an asshole. And sure, sometimes the person who tells you that the firm has a no assholes policy is speaking out of their own experience. They haven't encountered anyone who they would characterize as an asshole. But then they generalize that experience out to a firm of hundreds or even thousands of lawyers. And they genuinely think that they're telling the truth when they actually have no clue. And statistically, it's extremely unlikely. Here's the really insidious thing about people, especially partners who hold positions of power and authority in their firms, saying things like, we have a no assholes policy, when that's simply not true. In many of these cases, it functions as a way for them to clear their conscience so that they don't feel responsible for the bad behavior that they knowingly tolerate without actually doing anything about the offending party. Like, yeah, I know one of my partners, multiple of my partners, screams at associates, screams at support staff, screams at other partners. I know this or that person is a needless jerk in their emails. I know this or that person is a coward and doesn't take responsibility for any of their failures and always blames their juniors when something goes wrong. I know this person passes off the work of the people who are working for them as their own in really unethical and demeaning ways. I know this or that person goes out of their way to be horrifically rude when someone doesn't do something in exactly the way that they think that they should have done it. I know that this person has the equivalent of a toddler temper tantrum in email form when they're stressed out and want to take it out on the people around them because they haven't learned how to manage their emotions as an adult. I know that this person calls up people to unfairly berate them and treat them like misbehaving children, but will absolutely blow a gasket if anyone suggests that perhaps they had some responsibility for the problem. If you are in a position of power in a firm, being privately disapproving of someone's abuse without actively trying to remove the abuser from the situation doesn't get you off the hook. If you know someone is being abusive and you don't do anything about it, you are complicit. You are an enabler. You have sided with the abuser against the abused. Because calling someone an asshole or a screamer, that's just a polite way of describing someone who's abusive. Many law firms are harboring abusers and explaining it away because the person has a big book of business, or because a client really likes them, or because they've been there a long time. We have completely lost the thread as a profession when we can't call a thing what it is, when we justify and explain away bad behavior that is actually abuse, when we think abuse is something that people should be willing to put up with because they get a big paycheck. Let's stop hiding behind words and call a thing what it is. Biglaw, do better. For more on Biglaw, check out the video on your screen. I will see you there.